Hi, and welcome to another episode of NCBA's Coffee Break. I'm Nathan Wilner with the National Creditors Bar Association, and I'm really excited for our two guests today. With us, we have attorney Chuck Pona of Weltman, Weinberg, and Reis, and Wendy Weinhardt of TransUnion. So why don't you both take a second to introduce yourself, talk about your background and your interaction with the creditors' rights industry, and what area of practice of law you encounter. So, Wendy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So Nathan, thank you so much for having me back again. And Chuck, it's great to see you again. So my name is Wendy Weinhardt. I am a solutions consultant here at TransUnion. I've been with the company for about 4 years. I came over as part of the New Star acquisition. And essentially, as a solutions consultant, my role is to help our clients understand our solutions and where they can gather benefits from them. Prior to my time at Newstar, I had been at Capital One for about 23 years in a number of different roles, from customer acquisition to digital messaging, and then spent about 4 or 5 years in the debt collection space as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Chuck, give us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I've been with Weltman, Weinberg, and Reis for 35 years. Practiced most of that time in our consumer collections business unit. 3 years ago, I was elected to be our managing partner. So I manage the group now. Our firm is licensed in 8 footprint states in terms of collections, and with regard to our bankruptcy practice, we are licensed in numerous bankruptcy districts. We have 5 distinct business units at our firm: consumer collections, commercial collections, bankruptcy, real estate foreclosure, and complex litigation. And I'm also proudly past president of NCBA.
Yes, and thank you so much for your service. And I need to share with our audience my own personal bias that when I got involved in the debt collection industry and the creditors' rights practice of law, the very first person I picked up the phone to ask about should I get involved in this space was Chuck, and I'll never forget that conversation. And in fact, one time I was interviewed by about get to know Nathan Wilner, and they asked who's the person you respect the most within the industry, and I said Chuck Pona. So
well, I am honored. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So with that, we have a lot of experience on this episode, and let's find out how we can share some of that with our listeners. So in general, law firms face quite a bit of challenges in reaching consumers via phone. Has that been your experience? And what would you say is the underlying reason why law firms have that kind of challenge? Chuck, what would you say?
So let me take you back a little bit. There's not a day that goes by where all of us probably listening to this today, we don't get a call that's marked suspect call, potential spam, or no tag at all. And we at Weltman started wondering, well, if that's our personal experience, what's happening with our business calls? So I think Reg F has added to the issues here. And what we decided is we need to find a solution to address those two issues, either being mistagged or no tag at all. So it was at a TransUnion conference where I heard about 2 solutions, one called branded call display and one called caller name optimization. And at that time, TransUnion was looking for a firm or more to pilot these 2 solutions, and we were happy to jump in.
So I want to hear a little bit more about those solutions, but before we get to Wendy, I really want to. I mean, actually, this could be for both of you, but a lot of folks that take a look at our industry think that we're just trying to get more judgments or more just file lawsuits. And quite frankly, there are enough pieces of paper indicating that the consumer owes the creditor the money. No more pieces of paper is not what this is about. So why is it so critical, the communication piece to debt collection? I think that's an important piece to mention, how that really helps both the consumer and the creditor.
Well, I would respond by saying, our purpose is really twofold. Number one, we want to service our clients. However, we also want to be respectful to the consumers. And it is in our best interest, the consumer's best interest, as well as the client's best interest to try and resolve the debt prior to any lawsuit being initiated. So it really raises the importance of making contact with that consumer so that you can have a discussion about how to resolve the matter.
Yeah, and in most cases, resolutions are worked out, right? I mean, there is amicable ways to find space where both your client is satisfied and the consumer is making reasonable monthly payments. So contact is really key to this entire process. So with that, Wendy, what could you tell us about True Contact, and how does that really help with the solution of lending transparency to the entire process?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I'm actually going to pile a little bit on what Chuck said and what you guys have both said is, we all get those calls that we don't recognize. We're a little skeptical of answering. Like, it gets really sketchy really fast when you're like potential spam, potential fraud. You're like, well, I'm not going to answer that. And even if I do, am I going to trust the person on the other end to give them my payment information for a debt? Probably not, right? And, we did a survey recently. We actually found that's the truth for the majority of folks. Over 90% of them had said they were really reluctant to answer their phone. 73% simply said because they thought it was a robocall they didn't want to answer. And so when you start to think about these different metrics, you kind of put yourself in the client's shoes, the customer's shoes, right? Or even the phone carrier's shoes of these are calls that people are afraid to answer. Like, even if they want to, conduct their business and settle their debt and take care of things, they're even just reluctant to answer the phone because they don't know who it is. And so, as phone carriers, all of the phone carriers have algorithms that try to prevent bad actors from interacting with their clients. You as a consumer, I'm sure, appreciate that. And that's really where our services can kind of help and play in that space. The first one is with caller name optimization. And so what that does is that will register your business with the phone carriers, so you're perceived as a legitimate company. I actually don't think I realized this until I started working for New Start. There's over 900 phone carriers in the US. Had no clue there were that many. Like, it's just a phenomenal number of phone carriers. And so we have relationships with the majority of them. Over 850, I think, is the last count that I saw. And so the first step, of course, is making sure that you're seen as a legitimate business. And that's going to really cut down on those spam tags and call blocking, kind of those first step of that negative behavior. But then the second piece of it, what we're able to do then is add your caller name to the display. First, starting off with caller name optimization, it adds it to the landline display. But with branded call display, now we're adding it to the mobile carriers. And that's, of course, where the majority of us take our phone calls, right, is on your mobile device. And so seeing that name of Weltman that pops up on your display, you're now able to say, yes, I do want to interact with them. This is somebody that I feel confident interacting with. And it kind of takes away that fear of who's on the other end. So,
hey, Nathan, I want to add something.
yeah.
The CFPB has charged all of us third-party debt collectors to be more consumer friendly. And when we were looking for solutions, we thought to ourselves, what better way to be consumer friendly than to identify ourselves when we're placing that call, again, to Wendy's point, especially on a mobile device. So therefore, it's showing who's calling that consumer, and hopefully will lead to, again, a pickup and a discussion on how to resolve that particular debt.
So since you started using this product, have you seen any changes? I mean, are there results that are promising?
The results were phenomenal, and I'm going to turn to Wendy and have her give you some specific numbers from our test.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, so just to start with Weltman, we did an A/B test. So for the A population, that was business as usual, and we compared that against the branded call display population, so received the branding. And across the board, just as a holistic number, we saw a 40% lift in answer rates, 115% lift in right party contact rates, and 123% lift in promise to pay. And so that's just across the board. Like, those were phenomenal. And that's, frankly, that's similar to what we've seen in other spaces. I've done a number of these with different debt collection agencies. But we didn't stop there. We actually took the metrics just a little bit further. And So for Weltman, there were actually three main portfolios that they tested. So it was the pre-litigation portfolio, commercial, and then student loan. And then we subdivided that between HCI dials as well as manual dials, and saw phenomenal lifts across the board for promise to pays as well. And they really ranged, right? So for the lowest one would have been in the manual space for the commercial dialing, had about a 24% lift. And that pre-litigation portfolio for HCI dialing had a 433% lift in
Wow.
promise to pays. So, you know, when you start to think about the consumer dynamic, it really does go to, it's about trust, right? Because it's not only that more people are answering, which of course more people are answering, but more of the right people who are answering. And when I say right people, what I mean are people who intend to engage, they want to engage, they want to have this conversation, they want to take care of their debt. But they were afraid to answer the phone previously, right? So now you've built up that trust and you've really gotten this engagement. And Chuck and I were talking a bit about, you know, why the differences in different portfolios and manual versus HCI dialing. And the biggest one that stood out to me is the one I just mentioned for that pre-litigation portfolio at 433% lift. And I was like, all right, well, why are HCI dials so dramatic compared to, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, the manual dials were great too, but why so dramatic in the HCI dials? And I had a hypothesis, which, you know, I've been wrong before, so this might not be true, but my hypothesis goes back to trust, which when you've got those HCI dials, oftentimes there's just like a smidge of a delay when the phone call is answered by the consumer, but before the agent starts talking. And that little bit of a smidge of delay, along with the fact that the consumer's already in the back of their mind thinking, this is fraud, this is scam, this could be sketchy, that delay adds that layer of uncertainty from the consumer. And so with the branded call, now there's that transparency of who's actually calling, and it amps up the level of trust. And now they're more comfortable waiting that little blip of a moment before the agent gets on. Again, just my hypothesis, but you know, I think that probably holds some water to it. So
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So, you know, there's these scam alerts every day. I mean, I just got one yesterday saying if someone calls you and tells you that you missed jury duty, you didn't. That's not how you're told about jury duty.
yeah,
But you know, and they say, well, if you pay $50 now, we can, you know, a rescheduling fee or something of that nature. And people
yeah,
unfortunately fall for these things. And look, I always think like this: if you're not proud of saying who you work for, if your phone call has to be something different to get through to someone, you're doing something wrong. I mean, you know, and especially nowadays, the industry is not what it was, you know, 40 years ago. I mean, everything is transparent, recorded, compliant. The folks that we talk to, all they're looking for is clarity. Just tell us what to do and we'll do it. So that's really impressive, I must say. Those numbers are, I mean, the data doesn't lie. So that's really amazing. We're coming to the end of my cup of coffee here, and we are, you know, running out of time. Any closing words, final words you want to say about this product? I'll give Chuck first, and then Wendy, you'll get the last word.
Sure. Thank you, Nathan. I was thinking to myself, in these difficult times where it's becoming harder and harder to find and retain quality employees, it's important that all of us look within the industry to find solutions that are going to help us in that regard. And these two products that we just talked about really aided Weltman in terms of answers, right party contacts, and resolution of these debts. So I can't say enough good things about these products, and we're glad that we piloted them with TransUnion.
And Wendy?
sure. Well, I just want to thank Chuck for his time, Nathan for yours as well. I think, you know, I've been extremely ecstatic to see these results. You know, as long as I've been in the debt collection industry, which has only been 8 or 10 years now, I think transparency is the name of the game, and building that consumer trust. And ultimately, consumers want to do the right thing. You just have to give them the opportunity. And I think this helps do that. So all
That's
good
great.
stuff. Yeah.
No, that's great. And I'm excited to hear these results. So with that, thank you both for joining me today. And hopefully we'll have you back soon for another cup of coffee. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.